I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the January 13th, 2014 regular commission meeting of the Marquette City Commission. Would the audience please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, would you please call the roll of the commission?
Yes, Your Honor. Commissioner Kimbenzi.
Here.
Commissioner Campana. Here. Commissioner Coyne.
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Here.
Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse.
Here.
And Mayor Nemi.
Here. Fellow commissioners, are there any agenda changes that you would desire for tonight? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So
Commissioner
moved.
Kimbenzi, thank you. Commissioner Reynolds,
Second.
thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Kimbenzi, seconded by Commissioner Reynolds to approve the agenda. All in favor, say any discussion on that motion? Okay. All in favor, say aye or yes.
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 All opposed, say no. The motion is approved unanimously. The next item is announcements. I have my typical announcements that we have at most meetings of volunteer boards and committee openings. We have 23 openings right now. We'll be making 2 appointments tonight, I believe. 3 appointments tonight. One opening on the Aging Services Committee. That's for a person who has a housing background. Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, we have 3 openings. Harbor Advisory Committee, one opening. Local Officers Compensation Commission, 2 openings. Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, 2 openings. Marquette Housing Commission, 1 opening. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, 2 openings. Planning Commission, 1 opening. Police Fire Pension Board, 1 opening. Regional Recreation Authority Business Plan Ad Hoc Committee, 1 opening for an alternate member. And the Sister City Advisory Committee, 5 openings, and Traffic and Parking Advisory Committee, 3 openings. I'd like to encourage people to apply for boards and commissions. The commission actually right now has had an unwritten rule about letting people serve on only 2 boards. We're looking at extinguishing that unwritten rule, which isn't written down, so it's easy to extinguish. But we are having staff look at, there may be some natural incompatibilities to someone serving on 2 boards. For instance, if we had a number of planning commission members who wanted to serve on the BZA, that obviously wouldn't be appropriate since the BZA is the appellate body to the planning commission actions. So that certainly wouldn't make sense, and we're asking staff to kind of vet our list of committees and to see if there are any other natural conflicts but in the future, members of the committee and citizens should be aware that we probably will allow people to serve on 2 boards because we're having trouble recruiting members for our current openings. That's what I have on that. Now we will move to the regular agenda, the presentations. The first item on the agenda is a presentation on the Planning Commission by Chairman Wayne Primo. Mr. Primo, you have the floor at your pleasure.
Thank you. I think we can switch that one, Dave. We've got a picture of a rock. The next is the history. The City Planning Board was established in 1947 pursuant to Public Act 285 of 1931, now PA 33 of 2008, Section 2.13 of the City Charter. The first task of the Planning Board was to prepare a citywide plan in the public interest. Prior to this time, land development was largely uncoordinated. The Planning Commission is responsible for development and update of the city master plan, review and development of proposals, subdivisions, capital improvements, street and utility projects, making recommendations on zoning matters, the annual capital improvement plan for the City Commission. Planning Commission also has review authority over the 6-year capital outlay budget through the provisions of Michigan PA 33 of 2008, Section 2 through 13 of the city charter. Our major accomplishments during 2013. We drafted amendments to the sign ordinance, including the first regulatory framework for digital/electronic signs. Review of the 2013-2014 capital improvement plan, and made priority recommendations on the road utility projects. Continue update of the community master plan, aided staff in creating structure of several sections and editing drafts of several sections of the community master plan. Worked on the document is 70 to 80% complete. We participated in a review of the 3rd Street Corridor Sustainability Development Plan and the Climate Change Adaptability Study. And we got a picture, climate change. Go ahead, Dave. Proceedings during the 2013 Planning Commission cases and actions. We had 8 site plan reviews, 4 conditional use permit requests, 2 zoning ordinance amendments, 9 sign ordinance amendments, 2 rezoning requests, 1 plan unit development amendment, 6 street reconstructional capital project reviews, 1 property sale request, 1 plan unit development review, and 3 property use reviews. Meeting summary, we had 22 regular meetings, 3 special meetings were held in 2013, plus 4 work sessions and 2 public workshops. Regular planning commission meetings totaled 37 hours and 40 minutes. The average meeting was 103 minutes, or 1.75 hours. There was 1 unexcused absence and 18 excused absences in 2013. A regular meeting was not held due to lack of business. 1 regular meeting was not held due to lack of business, and another canceled due to gnarly weather. Finalize goals and concerns for 14. We want to finalize and present the final updated community master plan to the community. The amended plan document will divide it into a user-friendly 3-chapter handbook, 9 detailed chapters on key community interest, and 7 appendices. This will clarify intent and provide a more usable document for both city staff, committees, and citizens. We'll resume drafting the land development code, including updates to the tower code, wind power, and sign provisions. Anyway, revival of the public planning process for the city-owned Heartwood Forest property. Thank you. Any questions?
Commissioners, have any questions, Mr.
Oh, and I'd like to also, if I could, we have 3 members in the audience. We have Mr. Swagel, Mr. Laurie, and Mr. Bernanek. One of our newest members, and so, any questions?
Commissioner Kamenzi.
Well, I'd like to thank Wayne and thank all of our planning commissioners here. I know I served on that, on the commission, and it is a lot of work. And it certainly takes people dedicated to coming, twice a month and really having the knowledge and wanting to do the work involved. So thank you. 2 comments I have. I'm glad to see that you're working hard at the land development code. I know that was something we started even before I was on it. And I just want to reiterate the importance, though, of our land development code, are often referred to as the zoning code, simply because it's kind of like the guidelines and laws we set for the community, and they are forever changing, especially with the towers and wind energy and all this stuff. It's hard to probably feel like you're catching up on it. And one question I have is, do you see that, I guess, you have enough time, whether it's work sessions or maybe staff help to kind of work through that, or is there anything we can do to help you with the zoning ordinance or land development code?
I don't think so. I see it being a long way down the road. Master plan now has been 7 years, and that's just a update. So a whole new zoning ordinance is gonna take a long time.
The second thing I just want to comment on is as your goal of bringing back the public process for the Heartland property. I think that's really important. I think there are a lot of community members kind of waiting for us to invite them back for some conversations. So I just want to thank you and certainly agree with your goals for this year.
Thanks, Sarah. Anyone else?
Any other commissioners have a question of Mr. Primo? Commissioner Ryan?
I don't really have a question, but I certainly would weigh in on thanking the commission for all the work they do. It's obviously one of the busiest commissions in the city, and a lot of effort is put forth, and a lot of responsibility falls upon that group. So I certainly appreciate it, and I hope the citizens of Marquette do, because we have a number of people here who are volunteering a lot of time on behalf of our city. So thanks very much.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Just, Mr. Wayne, or Primo, to say the same thing again, that we really do appreciate the work you do. We do know how much time it takes and how it's in many ways grinding things very finely. But it has to be done, and we deeply appreciate the good work that you do. Thank you.
Anything else from my fellow commissioners? I just would like to lend my kudos to the work of the Planning Commission. I think, as mentioned here, we couldn't do our job without the job that you folks do, because they're very complex issues that you vet and come to us with a recommendation, and we can always rely on the recommendations made by the Planning Commission. So, as I said, again, thank you, and because we couldn't do our job very well without the assistance of the Planning Commission. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a presentation of the Upper Peninsula Children's Museum Youth Leadership Award. Ms. Kluge and Mr. Jim, meet me at the podium. This is a presentation to Sophia Kluge, Youth Leadership Award, presented for Outstanding UP Children's Museum Guardian of WOW. And WOW is, Mr. Jim told me, I don't recall exactly what it is. World of Wonder? Is that what it is? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Kluge. We know that you're a great addition to the museum, and on behalf of the City of Marquette, I'd like you to present you this award, this certificate of achievement. And would you like to say anything to the public, or? Oh, okay. Mr. Jim, would you like to say something on behalf of the Children's Museum?
It's been 17 years of us having Explainer of the Month and Explainer of the Quarter, and so, come on up. So Sophia blew into our program in late summer, and she was an explainer. And now in the fall and winter, we've now changed our volunteering to a game. So this is the best pixie we have, and I go by the new title of Head Gnome. And so, Mr. Mayor, we'd probably like to invite you honorarily to become our head griffin. Suits you better than unicorn, I think. And so we now have 35 youngsters came to visit the museum and volunteer during the winter break. And Sophia's one of our best. And so we leave you to carry on your meeting, but we're going to Big Boy to have banana splits. Okay. That's the real challenge, to see if we can finish them. Okay, so thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Yeah. I'm now the head griffin. Okay, the next item on the agenda is appointments to boards and commissions. We have 3 appointments: Joseph Scanlon to the Planning Commission, Jeff Nyquist to the Aging Services Advisory Committee, John DePietro, the former mayor and our former colleague, to the Traffic Parking Advisory Committee. Fellow Commissioners, what is your pleasure regarding this item? Commissioner Ryan.
I would move we appoint Joseph Scanlon to the Planning Commission for a term ending February 15th, 2015. Jeff Nyquist to the Aging Services Advisory Committee for a term ending August 1st, 2016. And John DePietro to the Traffic Parking Advisory Committee for a term ending May 30th, 2016.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Coyne? Thank you. Anything further, Commissioner Ryan?
Well, as you pointed out earlier, we need more and more people to volunteer, and we're very pleased that these very qualified people decided to step forward and take on some of that responsibility.
Commissioner Coyne, anything?
Nothing further.
Okay. Anything from any of my fellow commissioners? Okay. I'd like to call the question. The motion is to appoint the 3 people mentioned to the bodies and terms respectively. All in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed say no. The motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. Now we're at the public comments section of the meeting. Citizens may address the commission with 3 minutes per person. If you want to address a coming up agenda item, you may reserve time now. Please come to the podium, state your name and your physical address, and you may make your comments. The podium up here. Yes, that's the ceremonial podium. This is the speaking podium. We've switched things a little.
All right, good evening. I'm Wendy Frye. I'm here on behalf of the NTN.
Okay.
I'm available for questions on item number 5.
Okay.
And for the record, my address is
Okay, thank you.
My name is Daniel Mead. I would reserve time for item 5.
Okay. That's Daniel Mead? Mead? Okay. Okay. You want to turn that on, Mr. Barito, please?
That is to make sure that's on.
Generally, the speakers.
Frank Jeff Verdo, 350 East Ridge, Marquette. These are my opinions. Most of us agree on the excess of commercial traffic through town, especially along our lakeshore. Take the anticipated measures to institute an ordinance similar to the current draft, with added assurances for deliveries to Big Bay and clarification as to under what conditions the manager can issue permits. December 16th, grant money was mentioned for a solar street light at Wright and Lakeshore. It is senseless to litter our lakeshore with light. You're asked to mention this proposal in the December 16th minutes. Near the same spot, a 2-story structure rose at the east end of a college soccer field. Of course, it's not on the west side, farther from the lake. They never considered the proximity to Lake Superior. As in the case of the streetlight, entities lose sight of the bigger picture for their personal causes, like a rower's boathouse at Founders. Why a wooded location when a perfect open spot lies nearby? Add to this the 2 newer structures built with minimal setback at Lakeshore site at the very corner that you've been warned to buffer for 15 years. December 9th, Compensi told me she'd have voted to keep the closing comment were she not on vacation, resulting in a 4-3 vote. Because Campana was too new to realize the politics of his decision, I asked the Sarahs to explain the politics to him and how it's not fair to the average citizen and why closing comments can be important to the point of saving lives, which our record will attest to. We need a revote. Dave erred by backing his mentor so subserviently. This is the stuff of recall, except too few citizens used the time at the end, thus it's not widespread as to how sneakily Stonehouse, Coyne, and Nemi behaved to steal an opportunity from us all to avoid facing the allegations of one. They demonstrated a total lack of integrity. Twice prior to last year, 2 members attempted to reduce our minutes, and they failed by a large majority. Suddenly, 2 years in a row, Coyne, Nemi, and Stonehouse voted to reduce the time, yet the criticism against them was no more severe than to members past. The difference is they resorted to despicable measures to avoid accountability, which in my opinion should be illegal under the circumstances, a conspiracy. A further note is Coyne's vice presidency of a health foundation. This is well and good so long as he abstains from discussion related to any new or current hospital to avoid an alleged conflict of interest, which brings to mind the planning board member who voted to approve a tower that he had every intention of bidding on. We need to leave Marquette once in a while to remind ourselves of what we have here compared to how the rest live. I left last month well knowing that the best part of my trip would be returning to Marquette, which is true every time, even after a good trip and even in sub-zero weather. I don't intend to stand by watching this board tarnish our special way of life, one done deal and one botched land use at a time.
Thank you, Mr. Barito. Any other citizens wishing to address the commission? Last call for citizens wishing to address the commission. Okay. The next item is the consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda. What is your pleasure, fellow commissioners? Commissioner Stonehouse.
I motion to approve the consent agenda as printed.
Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Campana?
Support the motion.
Okay. Is moved by Commissioner Stonehouse, second by Commissioner Campana to approve the consent agenda items A through D. Any further discussion?
No discussion.
Commissioner Campana? None. Any other commissioners? Any comments on the motion? Okay, without further comments, all in favor of the motion say yes.
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 Anyone opposed to the motion say no. The motion is approved unanimously. The next item is number 5, unfinished business. City Clerk, would you read the background material on this item, please?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. This is for the NTN grant of license to construct a trailhead structure on the Heartwood Forest property. Background: on June 24th, 2013, the City Commission examined a request by the Nquaminot Trail Network, or NTN Council, to use a portion of municipal property adjacent to M553 for the construction of a trailhead shelter structure. This request came after a negotiation for sale of the property did not conclude in an agreement. Subsequently, a restructured request to use a portion of the property for construction and possible donation of a structure to the city was reviewed by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, PRAB, on April 15th, 2013, and the Planning Commission on May 7th, 2013. After the City Commission discussion on June 24th, the following motion was approved. It was moved by Commissioner Ryan, supported by Commissioner Nemi, and carried unanimously to permit the structure via a license to use city property, subject to the NTN obtaining any necessary zoning permits and approvals, waive the license fee, and direct the city attorney to prepare the license. Please see the attached excerpts of minutes from the June 24th, 2013 City Commission meeting and complete packet of background information compiled for the PRAB and the Planning Commission. Fiscal effects: the NTN will assume responsibility for all long-term maintenance costs, which are projected using a comparable city asset management baseline at approximately $9,376.68 for annual building maintenance, with additional building maintenance costs of $2,000 every other year and $10,000 every 15 to 20 years. An additional cost that could likely be incurred at some time in the future is the extension of water and sewer for $220,000 in 2013 dollars should utilities be desired inside the building. Recommendation: approve and sign the grant of license to use city property. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Ms. Fryer, Mr. Mead, do you have any presentation or just answer questions? Okay.
I don't have a presentation, but I am the attorney for the NTN. So are there any legal questions that would be based towards me? Be happy to answer.
Fellow Commissioners, what is your pleasure with this item?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I would like to move we grant the license to construct the trailhead structure on Heartwood Forest property.
Is there a second for the motion? Commissioner Reynolds?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Ryan, is there anything further you want to?
Well, as the clerk pointed out, and maybe just a little more detail, as as we've discussed before, this was a long discussion, a long process. You know, it started with the NTN group looking to buy some of that property. That raised some concerns with the city, and there was a lot of discussion, I think a lot of working together to try to make it work in a positive way. And actually at that point, I believe the manager came up with a decision, not decision, but a recommendation or the idea that we could proceed and make this work by the city granting a license. And this way they would not have to acquire the property. It provides some long-term protection for the city in case things change in that area, but I think it also provides an opportunity for NTN to move ahead with their plans, which I think there was never any question among the commissioners who sat on that committee that the project was a good one. It was just what's the best way to get there. And I think we found a good way, and so this is finally, I believe, the last step in the process. So.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Nothing further.
Okay, any other commissioners have comments? Commissioner Kamenzi?
Thank you. I have some questions for staff, if I could ask them. The first question, did this go to the Planning Commission, this project? Because what I'm seeing from staff, and actually from every department, is that the questions and things they have are questions that the Planning Commission would vet out.
Thank you, Commissioner Convenzi. Yes, this was before the Planning Commission, first as a property sale request, where the analysis of the property was vetted by the Planning Commission for the use, and then after the aforementioned property sale agreement didn't materialize, it came back to the Planning Commission for a recommendation after the Parks and Rec Advisory Board reviewed it. So the Planning Commission did make a motion on this that they agreed to the use, but there will have to be a conditional use permit acquired for the use of the property and the construction of the structure. But that's a formality at this point. With
How can we have a conditional use permit if we don't have any zoning on this property?
the property is zoned residential. General residential.
So then when we look at the red and purple spots, what is that?
No,
'Cause that's
the parcel this is on the red and purple, that's part of land that's not within the city, not within this particular area. This is land that's been zoned residential for 20 odd years, since the mid-1990s. It was formerly, before that, conservation and recreation. It was rezoned in the middle 1990s for housing development that hasn't materialized. I see what you're saying. You're looking at the Planning Commission's recommended map with the future planned area. Well, that's a recommended land use overlay. But this property has been zoned for quite a long time. This is land in the city that's been zoned.
so if it's residential, can we put up a large facility as planned? A pole structure on a residential zone
That's
property?
the conditional use permit requirement. It has to go back to the Planning Commission that is a provision of that RG, Residential General Zoning District, that this type of use could be allowed and a structure could be constructed on there of that type, a non-residential structure. That is allowable with a conditional use permit. I have the zoning map here of the current zoning on that property, if you'd like to see it.
As far as, I was kind of hoping engineering or public works could be here too, but there seems to be a lot of gray area as far as cost. Long-term goals for this parcel. I don't think you're going to find a commissioner that's going to disagree with the project, but to me, it looks like we've got a little ways to go on this contract. Some financial things, I would think that some of them are pretty big ticket items that aren't talked about. Particularly if there are going to be long-term bathrooms, water, sanitary. who pays for that? What's the expectation? I think one thing that strikes me, one of the comments in here is it is a 55 mile per hour road out in front of it, highway. And is that the best location? I think, will there be other drive openings needed? What does this do for the long-term planning? What we're doing here is saying that we're going to put this thing here and not consider everything else that the planning commission, planners, or economic development wouldn't consider. And I think before we approve this, I think we need to think about in a couple months, we're going to get what our rec authority brings back to us. And I think it's important to see what that says. I think we've told a lot of people that we won't consider anything official until that's back. I don't think you're going to find anyone that's going to disagree that we don't want this pavilion, but I think it needs to be done right, and I think it's an integral part of what we're starting to plan for this property. And I don't think we're there yet. I think there's a lot of staff questions that came back that are in our packets tonight with some pretty big items that either haven't been talked about or they're going to cause the city a lot of gray area as they go forward with their budgets and planning. So for that reason, I will not support this tonight. I fully support the pavilion project, but I think we need to wait till our rec authority comes back with their formal agreement, and I think we need to make sure that staff is comfortable with all of the questions they have. And those are all laid out before us. That's it.
Commissioner Stonehouse, did you have something?
I was just going to comment that certainly we've had a good working relationship with NTN for some years, and I look forward to that continuing. I think that this particular project is one that will help it move forward and is good for the future and good for the area. Thank you.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, and my purpose is not to debate with Commissioner Kambenzi because she raises good points, but a lot of these things were discussed between the parties during the negotiation, I guess, if you want to call it that. There is no obligation on the part of the city, for example, to provide water or sewer or any of those things. The whole idea was, if that's something they want down the road, they're going to have to contribute to that process. There's no commitment on the part of the city to provide that. Also, this also deals with the issue of the fact that we have not addressed the long-term use of that property, and I was pleased to see it's on the Planning Commission Planning Commission's agenda for the future, specifically that property which is kind of in between, not designated for recreation or development. But again, the discussion was that this would allow them to move forward. It does not preclude any future decisions by the city as far as what might happen in that area. But, I just think we can't wait forever. This group has been trying to move this project forward for a long time now, and this was a compromise way of getting there, and I think they realize some of the shortcomings to it, and we do as well, but it's a way to move forward. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. City Manager, did you have something?
Thank you, Your Honor. Only that staff doesn't have concern. I'm speaking for staff, and we've gone through this process for almost 18 months now. The reason we ended up where we're at is because, for exactly what Commissioner Ryan said, there's no long-term cost impact to the city. It's perfectly consistent, almost explicitly consistent with the recommendations of the Heartwood Forest Ad Hoc Committee in how to manage the South Trailhead. It's not changing the current use of the South Trailhead. By granting a license, it provides the opportunity at some point, once the Planning Commission and the public have made more determination about what they want to do with the area, a graceful way of either accommodating that wish as it moves forward without having to break any kind of larger agreement that might have been made with the NTN. Any future agreement based on expanding the type of functionality or the infrastructure would come before the City Commission again It's not something that's considered an incumbent part of this initial agreement. And it's been thoroughly vetted through the Park and Rec Advisory Board, the Planning Commission, and it's come before the City Commission on at least 4 different occasions. So at this point, after about 18 months of focus on this, I think we actually have put in a fair amount of deliberation, and I think it's perfectly consistent with the views of those bodies and the plans that have come before the Commission.
Commissioner Coyne?
I have a question of Mr. Fry. Could you come up to the right podium? Assuming this passes tonight, how are you coming with your fundraising for this? Have you started on it? Are you well into it? What's up with that?
We have started. Yeah, we had a pretty good feeling from the commission last fall in that regard. So we have about $30,000 in cash and in-kind donations, including a donated roof for the facility and lots of volunteer labor. So I think we're financially prepared to construct the pavilion, and also some of the money would be placed in a maintenance fund, and then also to fund a portable toilet, if that's agreeable, on a pad. So there would be bathroom facilities.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Further, Commissioner Coyne? Okay. Commissioner Kambedzi?
I thought I read that the actual structure will revert to the city after it's built. Is that true? So I guess the other questions I have are when and how are we going to deal with the cost issues that are outlined in here? Are they going to be addendums to this agreement? I think there's a lot of questions not answered, particularly from the engineering department: trash disposal, all your access, portable bathrooms, plowing. We sent the group who wanted to rent from us at Lakeview back because there were a lot of unknowns, and I feel like there are more unknowns in this lease.
So that was the city manager, Mr. Vita, indicated that with a lease, it would be our responsibility. So what was asked of us regarding a lease would be give us a very, I think it's a foot or maybe 2 feet past the footprint of the actual where the pavilion will be built. That is the legal description that was donated to us by Glenn Van Ness, gratefully donated that. So we provided that, and that has been attached to the lease that was drafted by the city attorney. Now, what the black letter rules regarding licenses are, sorry, I've been using the incorrect term, license, is that that footprint would be our responsibility. However, the parking lot and trash and whatever else is still city property to do with as you choose. So the all the questions that you're asking regarding a license would be our responsibility, but the parking lot is still yours to decide to do with whatever you choose to do as a committee for the use of the city. So the overhead would be, the building would be our responsibility. Mr. Vita has indicated that they would like to see a sinking fund to make sure that we have the ability to provide for that. We're agreeing to do that. So the whole reason of being here tonight is to get the license signed as part of the conditional use permit. As you're absolutely fully aware of, we have to be the owner before I can even come to the Planning Commission to ask for permission to ask for that conditional use. So we need to go through that process as well, the conditional use, and that's not an absolute. We have to meet the requirements that the City Planning Commission puts before us. So today is please sign the license so that we can then vet the rest of the process with the conditional use. But the funding and the other questions that you raise have been addressed, and the type of ownership and the legal footprint that is being signed.
and I understand from your point of view, the financial stuff has been addressed, but from staff, I see it's not, and that is on the land that is surrounding what we're leasing you, and that's my concern, is that I think from 3 different departments, whether it's zoning or whether it's finance, there's still some questions that I feel like we should really get more answers to, and we haven't. And I don't know, I'm going to disagree with our city manager to say that there isn't concern from our city staff, because if anyone's looking at the minutes, I think there is.
Mr. City Manager, could you assuage any concerns?
Why, probably not, but and I certainly make no effort to take any disagreement with members of the commission, but we're not changing the way we provide support to that area now. It's currently used for recreational purposes. It'll continue to be used for recreational purposes, and the same profile of support we currently have will continue to provide. This agreement really doesn't change any of that. What this agreement does is it allows them to build a chalet on city property, and anything having to do with the operation, maintenance, construction, and thankfully their agreement to provide and ensure the long-term sustained maintenance of that structure is in place. It's exclusively their expense, exclusively their responsibility, as what will be permitted by the Planning Commission as part of this conditional use process. But otherwise, we're not proposing to change the current use, the current support profile, or anything else. Some of the information I believe Commissioner Gampenzi is looking at that was originally part of the discussion was the financial analysis comparing what it would cost the city versus what it would cost the nonprofit to do similar kind of work. And from the analysis for this proposed method, it shows that they can do it cheaper than we can. And so it makes sense for everybody to come up with this kind of agreement, because it doesn't provide any kind of change to the area. It doesn't encumber the city for a long term, and it allows them to move forward with their project.
Further from any commissioners? Commissioner Kambenzi?
I just want to say that I fully support the pavilion. I support the project. I think there needs to be a little tweaking with this agreement, and that is why I'm not voting on it, and I would like the clerk to let that show in the minutes.
Commissioner Ryan?
Just one point of clarification. We're already providing plowing services there, collecting trash, I mean, as part of the existing program. And we recognize that as a valuable contribution to the recreation opportunities, and so we're not taking on anything new. Now, maybe if more people use it, it might increase some, although I guess plowing, for example, you pretty much have to plow regardless of how many people are using it. So it's not something new in that regard. I just wanted to make sure that was the case.
Commissioners? I guess I just would like to say that when the proposal came from the NTN to purchase the property, I certainly wasn't for that, because the property that was talked about was, in my mind, I thought was part of it was developable, but the NTN for years has maintained a trailhead there, and to the benefit of our community at no cost to our community, except for whatever cost the Parks and Recreation Department does for supporting that. And I think this is a good use. I think this is a great solution. I view this as similar to the Kaufman Sports Complex, where we have a group of citizens who come together, volunteer, raise the resources, and provide the city a very good facility to use and enjoy. And I'm certainly willing to support this. There's no other comments? I would call the question. It's been moved by, I didn't mark that down, Mr. Clerk, could you?
I did.
Yes, Your Honor. It's Commissioner Ryan and
Reynolds?
supported by Commissioner Reynolds.
Okay. Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, supported by Commissioner Reynolds, to approve and sign the grant of license to use the city property to the NTN. All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no.
No.
Okay, the motion is approved with 6 members voting in the affirmative and 1 member opposed. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Item number 6, EPA Brownfield Grant Resolution. Mr. City Clerk, would you read the background information on this, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. Background, the Marquette Brownfield Authority, MBRA, has been working on applying for 2 brownfield assessment grants through the U.S. EPA. At its meeting of December 19th, 2013, the MBRA approved a resolution, approved by resolution the application for 2 EPA brownfield assessment grants for the 2014 grant cycle. One of the grants is intended for sites impacted by petroleum, while the other is for sites impacted by hazardous substances. Each grant request is for $200,000 for a total of $400,000. The MBRA believes the grant application will be significantly strengthened if the City Commission adopts a resolution in support of the CPA grant and has requested approval of the attached resolution. Applications are due by January 22nd, 2014. Fiscal effect, there is no match required for this grant. If awarded, the city would benefit from the funded projects. Recommendation, the support the Marquette or the MBRA's application for 2 brownfield assessment grants from the U.S. EPA and authorize the city clerk to sign the grant resolution. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Fellow Commissioners, what is your pleasure regarding this item? Commissioner Stonehouse?
I motion to support the Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority's application for 2 brownfield assessment grants from the U.S. EPA and authorize city clerk to sign the resolution.
Okay, is there a commissioner who desires to second the motion? Commissioner Cambenzi?
Support.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Stonehouse, second by Commissioner Cambenzi to support the MBRA application for 2-year brownfield assessment grant to the U.S. EPA and authorize the city clerk to sign the grant resolution. Any further discussion, Commissioner Stonehouse?
Well, only that I think it's a great opportunity to have the EPA partially fund the brownfield to look at some of the issues we have in the city, and certainly we should take them up on that.
Stonehouse, Commissioner Cambenzi, anything further?
I just hope we get it.
Okay. Any other? Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, I have a question. Are these designated for some specific sites?
I can speak to that. No, the way the grants are laid out, they designate it's $200,000 for each of the types of sites, and the beginning of that grant process would be to create a list of possible sites in the city that have been maybe contaminated with those substances, and then the second step of that process would be to fund further investigation of those sites and try to determine where the problems really lie in the city.
Does the Brownfield group have some sites in mind, I assume? That
I assume they do. There's nobody here from the group tonight, but just the typical brownfield sites in the city. I mean, whatever they're looking at now, it would kind of allow them to do a little bit of outreach and look at some of those sites that are in the city. I don't know specifically sites, though.
I would certainly not speak against this because I think it's a good idea, but I think it would have been helpful to have a little more of that kind of information, as to how they hope to use these grants to, we obviously have some major sites in the city that we'd like to see some progress made. So, anyway.
Commissioner Campana?
I was on the brownfield, but they discussed this after I left, but I can remember them talking about everywhere there's an old gas station, that would be a site that, would potentially be a brownfield. Anywhere where, solvents went into the ground.
Thank you, Commissioner Campana. Anything further from any commissioners? City Manager Vida?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to provide again that this request is the second time this has come before the City Commission. Last year, an application was made for the same grant, and unfortunately, the brownfield wasn't successful, so they're making another run at it this year. So we'll certainly check back with them and follow up on what sites might be on the list. But we know in the past and have supported this kind of request previously.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? No further comments. I call the question. All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed, no. The resolution, I think it's a resolution we adopted unanimously. Is that by roll call then, by unanimous roll call? Yep. Okay. The last item on the agenda is number 7, Economic Development Professional Services Agreement. City Clerk, would you please read the background on this item?
Yes, Your Honor. Background. In September of 2010, the city acquired the services of an economic development professional, Mr. Harley Bucky Methvessel, to review Marquette's economic development strategy. Mr. Methvessel is a practicing attorney based in Washington, D.C. He has had considerable experience working with Congress regarding establishment of programs supporting rural economic development, along with serving as general counsel for venture capital firms. He has also served on the boards of several startup companies. Mr. Methvessel did not charge a fee for his time, only travel-related expenses were reimbursed. Mr. Methvessel is willing to travel to Marquette to review the city's budding economic development strategy and collaborate with key decision makers within the city to recommend our next steps. His services would again be offered without charge to the city for consulting services. Only travel-related expenses would be paid. Funding for this item has been included in the FY 13-14 budget. Fiscal effect: the FY 13-14 budget for the Strategic Development Department contains adequate funding. Recommendation: direct the city attorney to prepare a professional services agreement for consulting services with Mr. Harley Methvessel during the period of February 13th through the 17th, 2014, for a cost not to exceed $2,500. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Fellow Commissioners, what is your pleasure regarding this item? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Our motion to direct the city attorney to prepare a professional services agreement for consulting services with Mr. Hartley Methvessel during the period February 13 through 17, 2014, for a cost not to exceed $2,500.
Commissioner Campana?
I would support that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, Commissioner Stonehouse?
Well, I guess the only point I would make is that anytime we have an opportunity to obtain the services of somebody of this quality and this, what am I going to say, perception, I guess, as to the world of Washington, how it works and how that can be coupled economic development, we would be very foolish not to do it. We've had him up in the past. I think his advice has been very valuable and insightful. I've had an opportunity to meet with him, and I would look forward again to having that opportunity. And when we look at the potential outcome from the economic development side of the house, $2,500, is a lot of money. But in the real world of what we can potentially receive from this is really just very, very little. And especially when we compare that, I think to the real quality that the individual is able to give us. So I'm very impressed with him in the past. I think this is money well spent.
Thank you, Commissioner Stonehouse. Commissioner Campana, anything?
For $2,500, it seems like really good value to have this gentleman come in. So we can't lose on this. So I think it's a good idea. Thank you.
Commissioner Coyne?
Thank you. I wanted to speak because I just wanted to say Methvessel. That's an unusual name. And I have a question for the city manager. It states that he's not charging for his services. How does this man make a living if all we do is pay for his airfare and hotel bill? There's got to be a catch here somewhere. How does he make a living? I mean, he just doesn't travel. What's up?
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I have a statement I'd like to read just so that there's absolutely no ambiguity. This would be the third trip in 4 years that we'd ask Bucky to make. And he became a friend of the city through my personal collegial relationship with Bucky. I've known him for some time, and before I left Washington, he was one of my colleagues both at the Department of Education and at the White House working on different things. And I can personally speak for his qualifications, and I make the same offer to all my friends in senior places or in wealthy places, that if they're willing to come and donate their services free to help me do something, I'll gladly accept it. So far, and I've done that with most of our consulting partners. If people would like to provide their services and support, just like our volunteers on committees, and just like our other partners like Northern Michigan, I'll gladly accept that. I'd like to read a statement. I think it captures the spirit pretty much of this. Bucky's a former colleague of mine. He's a practicing attorney who's first came to the city to meet with the city commission and other officials in the fall of 2010 to help with the city's then nascent economic development strategy. He's a federal senior executive working on a variety of programs at the White House and has considerable experience working with Congress, particularly in regards to programs that support rural economic development. He's also served as general counsel on the other side for a number of companies and venture capital firms. He's currently serving as a senior counsel for technology and privacy at the U.S. Department of Education. So that's his day job. The purpose of the visit, if approved, would be to have him come for the third time in 4 years. The pre-coordination for the visit, just so people understand it's not something that is handled kind of in the back room or by cronies, is it has to be cleared by the inspectors and the attorneys at the U.S. Department of Education. I go through our standing process for professional consulting agreements here with the city attorney, and every time we've asked him to come up, we've put that up for a vote before the city commission and has been through that public meeting process. Transparency, of course, is very important because as a former colleague of mine, we specifically want to avoid the appearance of cronyism. I consider access to senior leaders like Bucky within the Obama administration and indeed within the state administration as critical and necessary for maintaining access to their unique knowledge and perspectives on different things that are potentially going to be facing us or different opportunities that might pop up. In the past, his participation has been widely coordinated. It's included participation by city commission and staff. It's included sessions with senior officials from Northern Michigan University, Marquette General Hospital, our Downtown Development Authority, as well as attending meetings that our commercial partners have asked him to participate in, and as well as reaching out through the media to the community. And past interviews that he's given specifically on the topic of economic development through the media are posted and available. People can Google them or see them through the city website. I anticipate, if approved, the itinerary and agenda would focus on the following items. We would discuss our local program and priorities, essentially a status update on where we are now with economic development and our options for moving forward. The world's not a chivalrous place. The federal government has decided to move forward, whether waiting for us or not, same with the state. And so federal program opportunities that are pending now, as Congress starts deliberating their fiscal year appropriations and the president's getting ready to ask for his federal budget, are things that we'd like to gain more insight into so we can start lining up potentially our strategic priorities and our grant writing or program pursuits as we move forward. I'd like to talk to him specifically about some government program siting opportunities. As we look at the consequences of different economic sectors growing, we still are interested in capturing as much of our core tenancy in town, if you will, as possible. We're the seat of government at the federal, state, county, and local levels. The more of those programs that we can attract to our area, the more that sector will strengthen. And then I'd like to speak to him specifically about micropolitan development issues. As we stand on the cusp of the next Michigan zone and whatever strategy we take for local development, we've passed our size standard. And the folks from YMCA know this particularly well. That's why we were urgently looking to support them earlier this year, earlier in 2013, to try to take advantage of opportunities that disappear once we move from being officially a rural area to somewhere between a rural and a metropolitan area. And of course, that long-term strategy, which was finalized by the federal government in 2010, is up for renewal now. One of the things that we're finding is most of the appropriations language, and particularly a lot of the grants that we used to qualify for, we're no longer qualifying for. And so putting a strategy in place to try to get that addressed is something that's critical to us. I wanted to note again that unlike other consulting agreements, Mr. Methvessel offers to conduct these visits for free, largely as a favor to me, as a favor as a colleague. As such, the cost of each visit is essentially the cost of a plane ticket. And I've not been able to identify through any other process any consultants who want to work for free for the city. I ask them all the time, and they don't want to do that. This is, of course, fundamentally cheaper than even any one of us flying down to D.C. and trying to do the same thing. First off, because we would have to pay for all the hotel expenses in addition to the travel, as well as all the other miscellaneous transportation and coordination. But that would also be assuming that we could go down there and meet with all the people and gain access to people in the White House to get this kind of information. I looked at that, presuming that you could find a lobbyist who could arrange that kind of access. They typically charge $500 an hour. So for a 4-day visit, even with an 18-hour agenda over 4 days, you're looking at somewhere in the order of $9,000. So I believe it would be virtually impossible for me to get the same cost value as what bringing him up here is. In the past, commissions have supported this and indeed met with him. Some of them are sitting here still today. I'd encourage them to share their views. And it was approved as part of our strategic development budget in the budget year. The other thing is we have some performance metrics we can absolutely show. As a result of Bucky coming up in the past, he was greatly responsible for facilitating our relationship that resulted in the FBI and the cyber detective. He's the one who's been facilitating a lot of the initial contact with the cognizant officials at DHS for critical infrastructure and for cybersecurity. And he's turned us on to grants and program support, some of which have actually been supported by Senator Levin. So I appreciate his willingness to come up here. It's something, again, that is a professional and personal courtesy to me because of my past life. I don't believe every city manager would offer something like that. When I was recruited, that was something that the City Commission at the time specifically called out as one of the discriminating factors for why they chose me over other candidates. And so I can't help my past life and my experience, and to the extent that from time to time I can talk people into doing things like this, I'll try doing it every time. And that's all I have to say, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Manager. Commissioner Coyne.
Well, thank you. You have to understand, there's 4 of us sitting here who don't know who Mr. Thistle is or ever heard of him. I've never. And my question, I think, was a legitimate one. And I think you did a very good job of answering it and describing it. Thank you. And I'd look forward to the 3 commissioners, apparently, who were on the commission at the time when he was here, if they have any comments. But I appreciate your answer, and I hope my question wasn't meant to be disrespectful, but you know, it's like, who is this person, okay, and why? Thank you.
Commissioner
Well, I don't doubt his credentials and certainly what he could help us with, but one question I have, we have an economic development plan, I believe, that we were supposed to see last December, and I have not seen anything on there, and I know this guy has contributed to that, but I guess where are we on what we've been doing for a year and a half? And I think there's a lot of questions about, are we in a stall stage or what's going on?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Commissioner. Really 2 different issues. Mr. Methvessel didn't contribute to the economic development consultancy that we have outstanding. That was with a private consultant named Michael Strumpf. And he's developed and provided a tentative draft of his effort that we're going to incorporate within the economic development assessment of the community master plan. And so hopefully that will be out sometime this month. We have the first draft and we're reviewing it. We're going to make our tweaks based on the current situation that we've got with the next Michigan zone and some other opportunities. But hopefully we'll have that finalized soon. What we've been doing with the last 18 months, of course, has been trying to line up an economic development regime that's going to cover all of our interests at the regional level and the local level, try to take advantage of the partnership and collaboration that we laid out for the governor in February 2012 when we put forward the micropolitan agreement. And that's primarily been in 3 different areas. The one has been participation in the Regional Prosperity Initiative, which is now providing grants and financing to different economic development organizations in the Upper Peninsula. One was the pursuit of the next Michigan zone, which the governor signed into law shortly after Christmas in 2013. and we have an opportunity that we're exploring but have not yet presented to this commission. It was the subject of review by the last commission, of potentially seeking partnership with Houghton Hancock to set up something like what Houghton has done with Michigan Tech University for a smart zone. And so the last 18 months have been very, very busy. In addition to the baseline studies and assessments, actually trying to move forward and create some of these opportunities that we're going to have to make some decisions on probably in 2014.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Are there further comments by any commissioners? Commissioner Ryan?
I guess my approach to this each year has been, this is a fairly small amount of money. If this is something the manager feels he wants to spend, then I've gone along with it. I guess one of the concerns I have is I don't recall ever seeing any report from him to us. That bothers me. We're approving the expenditure, but in all these years I've met with him, I've sat with him, I've had coffee with him or breakfast or whatever, but I've never seen any kind of report that here's what he's recommending, here's what he's saying, here's what his recommendations are for Marquette. So I think that's a concern. I think, very honestly, we do get some feedback from people in the community saying, well, is this really a consultant coming here, or is this the city manager's friend coming to visit? And are we underwriting that? As I say, I view this as the city manager spending this money because he feels it's worthwhile. And I guess if you're the manager of a city, you ought to be able to spend that much money to do what you think is right. But I'm not thoroughly convinced that I've seen the kind of results that you discussed, and I don't completely agree with the development of the economic development strategy that we have, where we refuse to work with local people, but we work with people from everywhere else. So, but nevertheless, I'm not going to stand in the way here. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Any other comments? Commissioner Kamenzi?
Just one, and that's that I think the only thing that we saw in the public was, a one-page report from the manager. And I guess I would like to hold off if this guy has all of these qualifications and can help us. I would prefer to get something a little more formal in place. It just seems like such a loose agreement. If there really hasn't been any report from him being here 2 times before, I guess that does concern me. Certainly if he does have, the experience and professionalism to help us, I guess I'd like to have the agreement with the city attorney, or an agreement like any other professional development agreement we have with anything we do with the city, before just approving this. So, I would guess I would like to see that at the next meeting, and that is the reason I won't support it tonight.
Commissioner Coyne?
I would support it, and I would like to ask the city manager if he could not compile a report after this person comes, so the next commission would have a record of what was discussed, what was accomplished over the next year, and I think that would be good, and I fully support his coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coyne. I guess I'd like to just weigh in here. I think it's a very good suggestion. My reply to, and I think the concerns about the lack of a written report are valid, except in this case, we're not paying him anything to come and do this. I think it would be improper for us to ask him to give us a report and spend his time drafting a report, and I think it's a very good solution to have the city manager draft a report delineating some of the activities and benefits that he has provided us in his visits. The first time this came to the commission, I had some of the same skepticism, the fact that this was a personal friend of the city manager's, and it looks too good to be true when we're getting this gratis. I guess I didn't have a chance, in fact, to meet with him that year because I was out, and the next year when he came, I'd heard some about his meeting, but next year when I came, I was very impressed. The cyber detective position, certainly that he's helped us, has been a real boon for the city, and perhaps the police chief could give us a quick rundown of the actual dollars involved. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you must have some sort of feel for what benefit there has been financially. If you give us quickly.
Sure. We've assigned a full-time, well, not full-time, but three-quarter time detective to the FBI Cyber Crime Task Force out of Bay City. He has an office here in Marquette at the local FBI office. The benefit we've seen so far is that the FBI has provided us with a vehicle for him, numerous training opportunities in cyber crime detection, and those are all over the country, not just local. They pay all of his overtime that comes with that, and there usually is several hours every pay period. Those are just a few. And then, of course, I can't measure it in dollars, but the depth that we've gotten into working on this type of crime has grown tremendously. It started out kind of slow because whether you aware of it or not, it takes about a year to get cleared through the federal government to even enter the building. And once that's done, he has access to all kinds of different things, and he's been working quite closely with us on a lot of our cyber investigations, as well as other agencies within the county and the Upper Peninsula.
Thank you, Chief, please. And I think just the car itself probably pays for the 3 years in this year for his visits. He's also made established contacts for NMU in DC on cybersecurity. I don't know how far they've gone on that, but certainly that's something that would benefit. And you can never be sure what the benefit is, but there has been some very real benefits from this relationship, and I support it. City Manager, you have some final comments?
Thank you, Your Honor. Only I wanted to address just a couple of the ones from the commission. It's not just kind of a handshake agreement. There's a letter agreement that's written, and I regret if the commission doesn't have it, but I'll certainly provide that so you can see what that looks like. The follow-up reporting has really happened in the past in a couple of different ways. We try to schedule one final session with everybody just to get a chance to meet and debrief on the session, and so commissioners present have been able to participate in that. And then I typically follow up on the discrete actions that come out of that. So it's a consultation. It's not really a report per se. So as we sit down and learn things, we identify follow-up here within staff, and we pursue those. And then those are the things that we've been reporting out. I can certainly provide kind of a holistic report back on the experience. Along the way, what happens if the commission approves these is we'll come forward with a draft and a draft itinerary, and it'll represent all the different meetings and the opportunities for the commission to participate. We coordinate that through the standing process, so it's on commissioner availability and interest. And so you'll have a very specific sense of how he'll be spending his time here, who he'll be meeting with, what he'll be doing, what the purpose of the discussion is. And then any follow-up that comes from that is something then that gets reported organically as we move forward.
Thank you. Commissioner, any other comments? Brian, any further comments? I'll call the question. I believe it was moved by Commissioner Stonehouse, seconded by Commissioner Campana, to direct the city attorney to prepare a professional services agreement for consulting service with Mr. Harley Methvessel during the period February 13th through the 17th, 2014, for a cost not to exceed $2,500. All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no.
No.
The motion is approved on a vote of 6-1. Thank you. That ends our regular agenda, and we now have comments from the commission. We'll start with Commissioner Reynolds.
Just a few things. I would like to thank the Planning Commission for their presentation. And I look forward to seeing what the NTN does in regard to the pavilion. And I think it will be a good gathering point, and I think it has good value for the city. And I also would like to wish the Brownfield Development Authority good luck in trying to get the grant this year. That is it.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes, I'd like to use my time tonight to talk about a story I read in the Mining Journal several weeks ago. It concerned a very tragic story of a young woman from Iran who was in this country furthering her education at Michigan Tech. She suffered severe injuries, apparently at the hands of her husband, and was brought to Marquette General Hospital for care. From the story, we learned that she was a very intelligent, very caring, very enthusiastic person. We also learned from that story that there were nurses and other staff members at Marquette General who really went to extraordinary lengths to contact this young woman's family thousands of miles away in Iran. And through the use of modern technology, they were able to bring them into her hospital room. Because of their efforts, they were able to give her family at least some understanding of what was happening to her. And as a result of their actions, her vital organs were given to 7 people whose lives were changed in very positive ways. I understand the city of Marquette cemetery personnel also participated, as well as one of our local funeral homes, so that she could be put to rest here in accordance with her religious beliefs. I want to thank the Mining Journal for bringing us the story. I haven't done justice to telling it to you, but I can tell you as I read it, I experienced a lot of emotion. I experienced sadness when I thought about the young woman. I experienced anger when I learned how she had suffered the injuries. But I also felt a great sense of pride in knowing that I lived in a community where people would step forward in a pretty major way to help an individual and a family they didn't even know. It just made me feel very good. It was a story that was both tragic and heartwarming. I contrasted that with a story I just happened to hear about the same time. I didn't catch the details, but on one of the news networks where somebody died in the door to a convenience store and nobody even stopped to take a look at him. So I know none of the people involved in this story did this for any kind of recognition or reward, but if it's possible, I would like to see the city of Marquette go on record as thanking all of those who went above and beyond the call of duty in this case, where it would have been just so easy to turn away from a person and family they never knew. They really speak so well for our community. Thank you.
Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Coyne?
I have nothing further. Just thank Commissioner Ryan for that comment. I think that's a great idea of sending him our thanks on behalf of the community.
Thank you, Commissioner Coyne. Commissioner Cambenzi.
Thanks. Just a little follow-up, I guess, since we haven't met in almost a month. I'd just like to thank the fire department. They had an incident where they actually saved a guy who was out in our lower harbor who fell through the ice. I think in the wee hours of the night. But certainly would like to thank them for all they do, as well as Public Works. I know there was a letter to the editor in the paper thanking them for the water main that broke Christmas Eve and thanking the guys working for actually taking care of the problem so that the congregation could hold their mass, you know, with some of them probably missing their holidays with their families. So I just, without getting into it anymore, I guess there's always a time to thank the staff that make the city what it is. And certainly when I get comments, I like to pass them back to the people that actually make it work. A little update, the Arts and Culture Master Planning as far as what we're doing, where we're going with that department. It's in full swing this next week. We have a lot of community meetings. We're starting to gather inventory of who's doing what and how much we have going on, and I really think it's a very positive thing. Our consultants have been great, very knowledgeable, and it's a fast process, but I would encourage anyone who has time to get involved, to actually get on our website and see all the different opportunities there are next week to come to a planning session. So that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Campana?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to thank the Planning Commission for what they do. I've been told they work harder than the commission, so thank you. I was able to attend a work session of the DDA today with the Mayor Pro Tem and the Mayor. And the DDA's appears to be, their problem is that they're growing and being very successful, so they got a good thing going, but there's a lot of good ideas thrown out today, and it's good to see them being successful in what they do. Lastly, I like what Don said about maybe we should bring these people in that did good things for this Iranian person and how they represented the city. So I think that we should bring them here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Campana. Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse.
Well, just a couple of quick things. Again, kudos certainly to the NTN, and I really look forward to continuing the city partnership with them. It's been good over time, and I think that's how you really test partnerships, is that they last over time and they build. And certainly that's what's happening here. So it's going to work out very well for everybody. Lastly, I'd like to throw out my thanks too to the folks at DPW. Working with the water breaks that have been going on with the cold weather and the cold snap below zero, that is just horrendous work. If you want to see men work, go up and watch those guys down in the hole trying to fix that water pipe when it's 20 below zero. That is miserable and difficult and demanding, and any description you'd want to put into it. But they earn certainly their pay when they do that, and I know that our residents are very thankful for them out there doing it. We pride ourselves on being a northern city. We pride ourselves on not letting a little bit of snow or cold get us down, but those guys really show it. They are the cutting edge on it, so thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Commissioner Stonehouse. Talking about that water break, I was going down, I was just down from my house on Christmas Eve, and I was going down the street, and I saw this big flood going across the intersection, and I called the police department, and the desk officer already had heard about that and said that Public Works already was sending a backhoe to take care of it. And I passed the backhoe on the way, and then when I came home shortly thereafter, backhoe was clearing the water and the slush from Fair Avenue and dumping it in the stormwater detention pond near the medical center. And actually the water had gone all the way down West Avenue, and so they had to clean that up. There was quite a job that they had to do, and it took them quite a while to do that. And I think we take for granted, we all enjoy our holiday, and others in City Hall were enjoying their holiday while that crew is out there picking up slush in below zero weather, and it's as Commissioner Cambenzi says, that's the kind of service we get from our employees, and I appreciate that. Lastly, the thing that Commissioner Campan alluded to is there's 2 more meetings yet on the farmers market. If anyone wants to provide input on Wednesday at 6 and Thursday at 8, and the arts and culture means there's one Monday, the 20th. I'm not sure. Is there another one, Commissioner Cambenzi? Second one?
I believe there's a couple chances for people to come to the forum and kind of give their input.
I guess I would also encourage people to look at the website. I'm sure it's announced on there, and those are a chance for the citizens to get an input. Especially the arts and culture plan, that's something that we need a wide range of citizen input on, so that we come up with the best plan, and the best desires by our citizenry is provided to the city on arts and culture. That's all I have. Mr. City Manager, do you have some comments?
Thank you, Your Honor. Only that I appreciate all the kind comments, and I'll make sure if staff's not watching tonight that they receive them all. Also for the support, I appreciate all the effort the commission puts certainly into the work that we put before you, and I appreciate you giving me the things I need to do as I ask for them, and beyond that, nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. With that, we are now adjourned.